From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christys, on GB News and GB News Radio.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to my new show, Lee Anderson's Real World, and on the first episode got some brilliant guests: Nigel Farage, Brendan Clark-Smith, Simon Danchuk and Vicky Michelle. Stay tuned.
Good evening, I'm Rory Smith in the GB Newsroom. Mortgage holders struggling with repayments will be given a 12-month grace period before repossessions begin. It follows talks between mortgage lenders and the Chancellor this morning on what more can be done to support struggling households. Under the measures being rolled out in the coming weeks, borrowers will be able to extend the term of their mortgages or temporarily move to an interest-only plan. Yesterday, the Bank of England raised the interest rate to 5% to tackle high inflation. Jeremy Hunt encourages people to ask their mortgage providers for help.
The most significant thing is that they can pick up the phone to their bank or their mortgage lender and talk about their situation without any worry that it will impact their credit score. And if they decide to make their payments easier by extending the period of their mortgage or by going to an interest-only package, they can go back to their original package without any questions asked, without any impact on their credit score within 6 months. That's the reassurance that people like Martin Lewis have been saying will make a big difference for families in those situations.
Well, Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer says the government needs to take responsibility.
I think what people want is action, not words, and what we suggested is that there's a requirement on lenders to take these measures, because there are going to be many mortgage holders, many families across the country who are now even more worried about paying their mortgage. That's on top of all the other bills, and they know that the government's failed now for 13 years. They know the government crashed the economy last year. What they want, I think, is a much stronger sense that the government is gripping this.
Braintree District Council has lost an appeal over plans to use the Wethersfield airfield in Essex to house asylum seekers. The council brought a legal action against the Home Office over the proposed use of the site to accommodate up to 1,700 male asylum seekers for up to 6 months. The local authority argued proposals would breach planning control, but 3 judges have dismissed the appeal, ruling in favour of the Home Office. A 25-year-old man has been found guilty of murdering a Met police officer in South London in 2020. Luis de Souza shot Matt Ratana in the chest at a police station in Croydon after smuggling in an antique revolver and opening fire while still in handcuffs. As a result, the Independent Office for Police Conduct recommends handheld metal detectors should be rolled out by all forces. Met Police Commissioner Sir Mark Rowley has paid tribute to Sergeant Ratana.
Matt dedicated 30 years of his life to policing. He was nearing retirement when he was tragically murdered. He was an outstanding officer who brought joy to his work. He treated everyone with respect, with compassion, and with good humour. In the days after his death, tributes flowed in from Matt's colleagues, from communities, from those he'd served, and from those who knew him in his life outside policing. They were a testament to the man that he was.
A man has pleaded guilty to the manslaughter of 39 people found in a lorry trailer in Essex in 2019. 50-year-old Marius Dragici was detained by police in Romania last year. He was charged with 39 counts of manslaughter and conspiracy to assist unlawful immigration. He's alleged to be the ringleader of a people smuggling gang. In 2021, 4 other people were jailed for their roles in the deaths. Strikes at Heathrow will end as airport security workers accept an improved pay deal. More than 2,000 staff members were due to strike for 31 days throughout the summer. Unite Union says workers will receive a pay increase of between 15.5% and 17.5%. Junior doctors in England will strike for 5 days from July the 13th. The British Medical Association says it's the longest single period of industrial action in the history of the health service. It's part of a long-running dispute with the government over pay and staffing. A recent BMS survey shows junior doctors are receiving more job offers to work abroad since strikes were announced 4 months ago. The royal family were out in force today at Ascot. The King and Queen led the traditional royal carriage procession around the parade ring. Following them in another carriage was the Prince and Princess of Wales. Kate was wearing a red Alexander McQueen dress and a matching Philip Tracy hat. They were also joined by acting royalty. That was Dame Judi Dench, who was in the procession's 4th carriage. TV, online and DAB+ radio, this is GB News. Now, though, it's back to Lee Anderson.
7 years ago today, we made the decision to leave the European Union, and I was one of the 17.4 million people who put the cross on that ballot paper to leave, and what a great decision that was. And if we could go back in time, I would make that decision once again. Look, we are a great country. We are a gift to the world. We are now an independent, trading, sovereign nation. A gift to the world. I keep saying this to anybody that will listen. Look at the things we've done in the past. We've given railways, we've given technology, the Industrial Revolution, arts, culture, Dickens, Shakespeare, sports. Look at, football, tennis, rugby, golf. Everything that's good in this world started on this great island of ours. For centuries, we have punched well above our weight on the world stage. I'm so proud to be a British person, even prouder to be an Englishman, and so I should. Seven years ago today, I voted to leave the European Union, so who better to join me on my first show than Nigel Farage.
Well, thank you, Lee. Pleased to be here.
Cheers, Nigel. Now then, Nigel, the roles are reversed. It's normally you sat here and me sat there. But I want to go a little bit further back to your journey, because I know you're a true patriot. Let's go back to the early 80s when you were at school. We have a problem these days with school teachers indoctrinating children. We know that at universities, at colleges, the left-wing elite, if you like. But you got into a spot of bother.
Yeah, when I went to that school, and I was very lucky to go to a great school, a private school, been around 400 years, but 50% of my year were scholarship boys. 50% came from families without much money, so it was a very good social mix. Yeah. The teachers, when I started, the teachers had flown Spitfires, commanded tanks. Yeah. The PE master was an ex-regimental sergeant major. Yeah. I got on brilliantly with them. They were tough, they were harsh, but I got on brilliantly with them. By the time I left, the class of 68 had pretty much taken over the English department and were all way left. Yeah. And so I started to see the kind of liberal intolerance that we're getting now. Yeah. Rather than speak freely, say what you think, it was kind of a bit of a, well, you can't say that, can you? So, yes, and then once I realised that what I was saying was upsetting people, I just kept on saying it and kept on going. But I do think the important thing is, always question what you're told. Never take everything you're told at face value. Think everything.
There was more freedom of speech at school back when you was at school or today?
So when kids were in playgrounds and they'd say bad things about each other, if somebody objected, you'd say, it's a free country. I can say what I like. Kids now, if they have a dispute in the playground, say, I know my rights. It's a very big fundamental change.
But we have seen over the past few days, Nigel, some kids are actually fighting back. They're recording some of the conversations through some of the woke nonsense that's being spouted, and they are fighting back.
I get a lot of emails from teenagers saying, Nigel, I don't know what to do. Do I speak out? Don't I speak out? And I sort of say to all of them, well, I felt like that a little bit, you know, all those years ago. I mean, that 13-year-old girl at Rye College in East Sussex, who said she didn't really think it was very sensible for her friend to identify as a cat, and then had a bit of a Barney with the teacher. She showed great spirit. But look, the important thing in life, and it doesn't matter whether we're left or right, whatever it is, we need to respect the fact that other people have different opinions, and to teach young people critical thinking, to teach them to listen to both sides of an argument, make their own mind up, and sadly, that's not happening enough.
Did you manage to get your prefect badge?
I did. Amazing.
And what was your biggest achievement as a prefect at school?
Keeping out of trouble myself, I think. Yeah, no, I mean, look, I had a great time at school. Yes, I was controversial. Yes, I was argumentative. But I kind of think young people ought to be.
I think it's interesting you say that, Nigel, because when I was at school, especially junior school, I'm a little bit younger than you, but our teachers had come from the Second World War. We had one chap, Mr. Swain, God rest his soul, he'd been a prisoner of war. He'd actually been shot. He showed me his bullet wound. And we had Mr. Ralston. He was in the Royal Navy, Sailor Bill, we used to call him. Then when we went up to the senior school, our head teacher had been in the Navy as well. So these were people from a different era, got different values, and I respected these people. And I see one of my old school teachers now still, and I still call him sir after 40 odd years. But let's move forward a little bit. You know, I want to skip a few years. You end up as an MEP. In Parliament.
I mean, even though at school I was fascinated by current affairs, and we had a succession of brilliant speakers that came to the school, you know, Ken Livingstone, Keith Joseph, Enoch Powell, I mean, from right across the spectrum. So I was very interested in current affairs. But I'd never intended to be in politics at all. I'd never even intended to stand for local council. But it was really almost exactly 30 years ago. We joined the exchange rate mechanism. Interest rates went through the roof. People funny this, isn't it? People struggled with mortgages, businesses went bust, and we were doing that to align ourselves with what became the euro currency. I was appalled by that. I thought the way the Tory party got rid of Thatcher was pretty gutless. And of course the Maastricht Treaty, signing us up to an ever closer union. So that was when I suddenly decided I want to be political. And I saw people in the Labour Party, there were more in those days than now, people in the Conservative Party who had exactly the same fears about where we were going as I was. But I didn't think any of them really had the balls to actually do anything about it. So I campaigned from 93 very hard, and in 99, under proportional representation for the European elections, got elected to the European Parliament.
It would be fair to say, though, Nigel, looking back, because I've followed your career, even when I was in the Labour Party, and some of the scenes, if you like, we see in the European Parliament with you holding the Commission to account. Some very light-hearted, funny speeches, but with a great point to them as well. And I think we're going to look at a clip in a moment. I think it's the damp rag speech and the you're not laughing now.
You have the charisma of a damp rag and the appearance of a low-grade bank clerk. And the question that I want to ask, that we're all going to ask is, who are you? I'd never heard of you. Nobody in Europe had ever heard of you. I would like to ask you, President, who voted for you?
You know, when I came here 17 years ago, and I said that I wanted to lead a campaign to get Britain to leave the European Union, you all laughed at me. Well, I have to say, you're not laughing now, are you?
So that's very good stuff, Nigel. It always tickles me to see that. Great entertainment. But I'm going to bring in somebody now in the corner. We have a token lefty in the corner. It's Simon Danchuk. After all these years, Simon, you've finally got your name up in chalk. That's a great accolade, that is. That's great stuff.
Thank you.
So you actually voted to remain?
Yeah, that's right. I voted Remain in the referendum, but accepted the result of the referendum. So once we'd voted to come out, then I supported that. Though I have to say, I think it's not been a great success, and it's the Conservative Party who failed to make it a success. I mean, the economy's not doing well from Brexit. I'd be interested to hear what Nigel thinks about that.
OK, you can stop your political broadcast. How would you have done things differently, Simon?
Well, I think we could have done more in terms of the Commonwealth. It accounts for about a third of the population of the world. I think we could have built stronger relationships through the Commonwealth and used that to our advantage economically. I think the economy's been mismanaged, it's fair to say. I mean, just keep changing chancellors and all the rest of it hasn't been good for the country. So we haven't got the Brexit positiveness that we could have got from...
You sound like an ally to Nigel Farage now. You sound like a Brexiteer.
Well, once the people have made their decision, I do support that. I mean, you can't decide any other way. I mean, there are people in the Labour Party who would still have us go back in, and that would be my fear under Keir Starmer.
So the arguments you're making now about having stronger links with the Commonwealth, that makes complete sense. Were they the sort of arguments that you were arguing against during the referendum?
No, I was just about a Remainer. I was conscious that the EU wasn't working perfectly by any stretch of the imagination, but I concluded that we were just about better off being in there than being outside it, whether that were the right decision or not. But the public have made their decision, and Brexit is the result of that, and that's what we should have.
So if there's a referendum tomorrow, which way would you vote?
Oh no, because the public have decided.
No, which way, if there was, which way would you vote?
I'd vote to stay out now. No doubt about that.
Okay. Nigel, he's a great man. Is Simon?
I've got great respect for that. I mean, look, here's the point. The country made a decision. Once you've made that decision, you accept it as a big democratic mandate, you go with it and try and take full advantage of it. And obviously, in the campaign, Simon was weighing up the pros and cons. The big disappointment is the Conservative Party never believed in it. Some people did, but the government never believed in it, and effectively, they've sabotaged Brexit. They've not delivered. There were two things that were clearly achievable and desirable. One was proper border controls. As we speak, there are dinghies crossing the English Channel. As we speak, net migration is now 3 times what it was before Brexit. And the second is for the millions, 5.5 million men and women out there running their own little businesses. They genuinely expected regulations to go, and none of it's happened. And there is this feeling that it's been sabotaged, and it now makes it easy for Keir Starmer's government to sign us back up.
So let me ask you one final thing, Nigel, before we draw to a close. You've been in politics now for over 30 years. You were Mr. Brexit. You've probably been the biggest single influence on politics as a person that's not within Parliament over the past 30 years. You certainly are responsible for me being here, doing this job for GB News and being a Member of Parliament. Would you do it all again?
It came at a price, and I don't mind the price that I had to pay. I regret the price that those close to me had to pay in all sorts of ways that I don't really talk about publicly, but there was a big price to pay. Do you know what? Most people, Lee, go through their life and never really discover the thing they really want to do or want to be. I was lucky. I found what I liked. I found what I was good at. I dedicated myself to it completely, but I also had a huge amount of fun along the way.
So you're happy with in your own skin?
Oh, absolutely. I did what I believed in.
Nigel Farage.
Thank you.
Cheers. I want this show to be about real people, so I went on the road with Gary the cabbie. I want to speak to real people, and they don't come much realer than Gary the cabbie. Gary, I want to ask you a question today about low traffic neighbourhoods and how that impacts you and your income as a cabbie driver.
Since they've come in, the main thing is when you do the knowledge, the idea of the knowledge is to get people to their destination as quick and as short as possible. These ELTNs are now stopping that. More so, they're stopping us getting the disabled, the vulnerable people, and lone women home safely. We have to drop them at the end of their road, and they still have to walk to their destination, which isn't safe for them or the disabled people.
So I guess, Gary, that's having an impact on your income and the safety of your punters.
Yeah, the income, not so much, but it's the worry of the safety of our punters. Once we drop them, if we could drop them at their door, we normally wait for them to go in so that we know they're safe. Now we're dropping at the end of the road, especially lone females, we don't know what's happening with them. Once we've dropped them, it's just not safe.
Coming up, I'll be discussing classroom culture wars with Brendan Clark-Smith, former school teacher and now Conservative MP.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the People's Channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute. Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christys, at drive time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app, and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christys, on GB News and GB News Radio.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So this week, in a school in the south of England, we saw children pushing back at school teachers over the supposed identity of some children. I think one was presenting as a cat, and we've heard in other schools that there's another one presenting as a donkey.
How dare you? You've just really upset someone. Saying things like, should be in an asylum.
I didn't say that. I just said if they want to identify as a cat or something, then they're like genuinely unwell. Then they've gone, yeah, they're crazy.
You were questioning their identity.
No, I wasn't a question. I was just saying about the gender. I didn't say anything about them.
But where do you get this idea from? There's only two genders.
I just said my opinion.
You were talking about the fact that cisgender is the norm, but you identify with the gender with the sexual organ that you're born with and that you're with. That's basically what you're saying, which is really despicable.
So I'm delighted to have Brendan Clark-Smith, MP for Bassett Law, with a big majority. He doesn't like to talk about it, but he's an ex-school teacher, ex-head teacher. Brendan, what's going off?
Well, don't ask me, I'm a giraffe. So, yeah, I think this is the thing, Lee, isn't it? Kids want attention. It's not particularly new. It sounds like one of the kind of things that you do to a supply teacher, playing a bit of a trick on them, making noises at the back of a classroom and so on. And, yeah, kids do want attention for a variety of reasons. And there may be a safeguarding issue there, or there may be some underlying problems. And you do get that, and you want to make sure that kids feel safe in the school that they're in. But this just sounds nonsense. I mean, really, pretending that you're a cat, that? I mean,
there is a lot. I mean, children, especially young children, like to play. They like to be different characters. We used to play cowboys and Indians and soldiers and all sorts of stuff. Tarzan was a big one when I was a kid, but it just seems that we're going a step too far. What sort of role should the parents play in this?
Well, this is the thing, the parents don't even know this is going on a lot of the time, and parents don't know what their kids are being taught. A lot are worried about the sex and relationship education that's going on there, or this pronouns thing as well. I mean, whatever happened to kids just learning maths,
that's
English?
confusing, isn't it?
Biology.
You know, kids are seeing this on the TV, all these different pronouns are getting confused, so surely that's not helpful.
Well, exactly, and we need to let kids be kids, and they go into school, we expect them to learn. We don't want this running battle with things that they've seen on television, or they're being influenced by people, and it puts teachers in a really difficult position, because a lot of teachers are scared to death that if they do the wrong thing, or they offend somebody, or suddenly they're going to be cancelled or whatever. But I think this is where you need really strong management in a school, because if you're actually stepping in and saying, no, actually I'm going to back my staff here, I'm going to back my teachers to do the right thing, and then I think that would actually solve a lot of the problem. But unfortunately, as we've seen even in politics, Lee, a lot of this nonsense is being allowed to proliferate, and the definition of what a woman is and so on. And
yes, but here's a killer question. You've got 2 boys. If your boy, oldest boy, I know he's at school now, Henry, if he came home and says, Dad, I'm a cat, how would you handle that?
Well, I mean, to be honest, he came home last week and we were having that conversation that no parent really wants to have. He asked me to buy him a Liverpool shirt, and I said, you can forget that.
I think I need a drink.
I think I need one. Well, teachers used to be able to do this at lunchtime once upon a time. I think we remember that.
And smoke in the staff room, but I don't condone that, mate.
Well, there you go. It used to be kids hiding behind bike sheds. Teachers have to do it nowadays. But yeah, that's the kind of thing. You have a conversation with your kids, and you humour them a little bit, or you say don't be silly or whatever, and then they'll go to school the next day and it's something else or the next fad. But I think you get into the stage where if it's pushed and it's a long-term thing, you look at what happens with a lot of these clinics and things. We're very worried about people expressing their gender identity and feeding these ideas. We just need to let kids be kids.
You're an ex-head teacher of a school. What would you say to your staff if they were, pandering to this nonsense?
Well, I'd tell them to get on with their job and teach what they're supposed to be teaching, but really, I mean, you don't need to explore a lot of these topics in the first place. I think it goes a little bit far. I think we maybe teach about some of these things far too early as well, but what I'd say to the staff who actually want to put their foot down, teach their lesson without people making animal noises or so on, and say, I'm going to back you because you're a professional.
And the unions have been very quiet on this, Brendan. Why is that?
Well, they are, aren't they? They're scared to death of offending people again, and they put their money into all sorts of these campaigning organisations, and then you get groups like Stonewall, and employers are desperate to have their little charter marks or whatever there are next to it to say how wonderful they are and they're complying with this and how inclusive they are. And I mean, that used to be an organisation that did a lot of good work and have now all of a sudden gone off there and have kind of marginalised themselves with a lot of the LGB community.
So, I mean, the schools, the school unions, should I say, are very quick to encourage teachers to go on strike and hold kids to ransom and hold the country to ransom, but not very quick to call this out, are they?
Well, exactly, and kids miss so much school with the pandemic. I mean, really, they want a bit of normality, and a lot of our kids don't know what normality is with schools. I think
Brendan, I'm going to have to stop you there. There are baked beans incoming. So you got in a little bit of stick a few weeks back over your comments over I think it was a top brand of baked beans. Somebody complained the price had gone through the roof, and you said something like, well, buy a cheaper brand. Is that true?
Well, I did, yeah.
Baked beans, say the price has shot up at that, and people say, oh, this tin has gone up by 50% or whatever. Buy the Tesco value one.
No, but they don't taste the same. But if they don't have baked beans that aren't hard.
Yeah, if Jack Monroe or Martin Lewis gives this advice, they're seen as saints for it, but it's evil conservative politicians, Lee, baked bean brand, as I've been called now.
I've got good news for you, Brendan. We're going to do the baked bean test today. We've got some top brand baked beans, some supermarket and another cheaper brand. So what we're going to do, close your eyes, I'm going to mix them up.
OK, you're not going to spit in it, are you?
No, I'm going to mix them up. So you've got to tell me which one is the best one. So, so there is a spoon incoming.
Lovely.
Open your mouth.
OK.
Here comes a train. What do you think of that one?
Well, they're cold. I'm not coming back to this pub for food.
Well, dodgy landlord. What do you think of that one? Is it OK?
It's kind of a nutty twang. It's a kind of a 1984
a good
kind
bouquet.
of feel to it. A good bouquet, very fluffy.
Yeah, a cheeky one.
Cheeky one, a little bit dry.
OK. And then
it's a very plain, very flat taste, very.
And then the third
very
one,
neutral.
because we've got to crack on. Incoming.
Well, I've just had a glass of water before this, and I think that was probably stronger than those beans that I've just tasted.
So 1, 2, or 3, which is the best one?
Well, 3 that I've just had, certainly the weakest one. Not a big fan of that at all. Number 2, I thought was pretty good, actually. Number 1, bit too much sauce, maybe there's some sugar in it or something. It's a bit too much. So I'm going to go for number 2, Lee.
Well, you'll be pleased to know, Brendan, that is a Co-op brand. So actually, there was a lot of merit in what you said when you made the comment about buying cheaper brands. We've got a Heinz, I think it's a Heinz one there, and a Lidl one there. So actually, Brendan, what you said...
The Heinz was the worst one.
Yeah, that carried a lot of weight, so...
well, so do I nowadays, but...
Well, there you go. That's absolutely brilliant, Brendan. Thanks for the baked bean test, and hopefully we'll get you back on the show very shortly.
Cheers.
Cheers. And now it's time for Wokie of the Week. My favourite part of the show, where we choose 3 wokies. That could be people or an organisation that's done the wokiest thing this week. Now, Simon, bit of fun here.
Yeah.
Read this week that Glasgow goers, and you've been to Glastonbury.
I've been to Glastonbury,
they're paying £24,000 to stay in a tent for the weekend.
I have some sympathy with that, if I'm honest. It's pretty grubby at Glastonbury. It gets pretty muddy, so I'm sympathetic with them. I mean, it's a lot of money, but it's swimming pool and everything else.
Isn't it part of the fun to get grubby and dirty and smelly?
But it'd be quite nice to do it luxuriously.
And have a few drinks.
Yeah, I'm not voting for them.
What would you pay 24 grand?
No, well, I haven't got 24 grand, so yeah, no, that's a quick answer to that.
I guess the next one we've got is what we touched on earlier, is the Rye College teacher. This is a teacher who's pushing back at pupils who have the audacity to challenge him over gender identity.
I think this is a possible contender, actually, and I think it's good that kids are pushing back on some of this stuff. I think the kids should be welcomed in doing this, actually.
Would you encourage your own children at this school to push back at the teachers?
Yeah, absolutely, to challenge some of it. You know, I think the teachers need to get in line on some of this.
And if the teachers or headmaster or headmistress came knocking on your door, what would you say?
I'd tell them what I thought. I'd say it's they're entitled to the views.
Right, the final one we've got this week is James O'Brien.
Oh, yes.
Have you heard of James?
Yes, he's LBC presenter.
He's impersonating a radio presenter at the moment on LBC. Now, he's not actually said anything this week other than just being irritating. Has he got a chance this week, do you think?
I think he's got a good chance. Privately educated, far left-winger, I would describe him as.
How much was that a year at school?
Oh, I don't know, but it will have been considerable. But he's very much on the left in politics, and I can't believe he hasn't said anything that's not woke this week.
So this is a person that would have, cost his parents or whoever thousands of pounds to go to a private school. Yeah, he's on the left politically and spends a lot of his time having popular people like myself and Brendan, who we spoke to earlier. So he's a real contender.
Real contender.
Let's have a vote. So, is it the Glasgow goers?
No.
Is it the Rye College teacher?
No, on consideration after the last 2, no.
So although James O'Brien has not done much this week other than be irritating on LBC, does he get your vote?
Yes, we've voted.
Gets my vote as well. So James O'Brien, you are Wokie of the Week. Congratulations. Coming shortly is Vicky Michelle from Hello Hello. See you in 2.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard. We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often there will be difficult stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Dan Wootton. You can watch me live on GB News Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. And did you know that you can also watch and listen live on our website, gbnews.com. You'll always be up to date on the latest breaking news, as well as enjoying the best stories, opinions and shows. You can even join the debate under our live player as you're watching. So head straight to gbnews.com on TV, radio and online. GB News, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
The People's Channel.
Britain.
Well, welcome back, and I am joined with the legend of the small screen, Vicky Michelle. Now then, Vicky, I grew up watching you on Hello Hello back in the 80s.
Excuse me, may I say something? They shot him. You cannot have sadly missed. There should be a poem. The rifles fired, the bullets hit. How we shall miss that little man. And pray it didn't hurt a bit.
And as we said earlier, comedy, I think, was so much funnier then. But there were certain things in those comedies that we probably wouldn't get away with today due to the woke culture. Just tell me what it was like in that programme.
Well, when I was doing comedy, I mean, it was laugh out loud comedy. Yeah. So we had David Croft, Jeremy Lloyd writing brilliant scripts, sort of schoolboy humour, and it made you laugh out loud. And I think the secret to it was we sent up everyone. It wasn't like we sent up the Germans, the French, and the English. We sent everyone up, and it was accepted. And I think, comedy at that time, you could laugh out loud.
So I guess, look, watching things like Dad's Army in the 70s, then Hello Hello in the early 80s, there were certain jokes that were targeted at young people, what young people got, and then the older generation. Because when I watched the reruns, I thought, that wasn't funny as a child, but it is now. So it's incredible, isn't it?
Well, it is. It was like little things like when I think Renee was passing the not first sausage under the table to Gruber, But the kids think it's a sausage and that's really funny, and then the grown-ups were getting the double entendre on that one. But it was schoolboy. But I think the gift of it was that it actually made you laugh out loud. And we recorded it with a live audience. So you got that reaction.
Yeah, I mean, moving on a little bit to the later 80s when it was still around your programme, I guess it was the sort of thing, I was a coal miner at the time, working down the pits in Nottinghamshire, and it was, did you see Hello Hello last night, or did you see Dad's Army last night? And we'd sort of replay the scene sometimes and say sayings that come out, and, I will say this only once, and, and all these things, it was just brilliant at the time.
I think it was used in, all of the phrases, because everyone had their stupid boy Pike.
Yes,
you stupid boy.
Don't tell him Pike.
Don't tell him Pike. And, I was listening very carefully, you stupid woman. And I think people got used to those phrases and they used them in their everyday language, so it became part of our language.
So why is it that we still watch programmes like Hello Hello and Dad's Army and Rising Damp and programmes like that, and we still find them absolutely hilarious, but they're not making programmes like that anymore?
I don't know. it is a quandary, because I think that in today's society, people need to laugh. We need things to make us laugh. Everything is, I think everything seems to be targeted to depress people.
Yeah.
And I think if we had those old comedies back where you could laugh out loud, it would be better for everyone. And I think that's why, I mean, Hello Hello's on Yesterday Channel on Sunday, so they're doing four programmes, and they get really big viewing figures because people want to laugh. They want something to laugh at.
So you played a French lady in Hello Hello. How is your French?
Fabulous.
Yeah? Can you speak French?
No, English.
And how much
Un petit peu.
Petit peu. And how much of the programme was actually filmed in France?
None. No, we filmed in Norfolk.
Really? That's where Dad's Army were filmed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And do you know why that is? Because David Croft lived there.
It's funny that, because you can see that programs like Dad's Army and Hello Hello and You Rang My Lord, it was, I think it was the same writers and the same sort of comedy. Absolutely brilliant.
But they were all filmed around there, and also you've got some of the old army bases around there. So you had the Nissen huts, and all of that sort of thing that you could use for the series. And obviously David was there and he knew everyone. So
what do you think, Vicky, when you see some of these old comedies from the 70s and 80s, when they have a disclaimer before they come on, say some people might find this offensive due to racism or especially Dad's Army and Hello Hello with the references to the German army and Nazis?
Yeah, but we got the same back as the English, stupid English, and I think we all have the facility to laugh at ourselves. And I think that if you're watching comedy should be to let you laugh out loud. And I think people should be able to choose. If people want to choose, then they can choose what to watch or not. And I always say, well, if you think it's politically incorrect or something, don't watch. You have a choice. We have a choice.
What makes you laugh today? Which programmes?
Not a lot. No, I think that, I do like watching the old programmes. In fact, in lockdown, we started watching Hello Hello, and you'd laugh out loud on that. Now, I have to start watching, because I'm not watching so much television. So I think that I'm going to start watching the new programmes to put. But, there used to be, like, there's like Catherine Tate, that was funny.
Yeah, that's funny. Really funny.
And the two boys, David Williams and what was the name of their series?
They've banned that, haven't they?
Have they?
Little Britain.
Little Britain.
Yeah, they've banned that.
Yeah,
it's banned that.
I think they should just ban everything. Yeah. Because
let's all stop at home and be miserable and not laugh at anything.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that would be let's be the miserable people. I think it's unfair, and we have a choice. Watch it, don't watch it. Your choice.
So, what was your favourite part of Hello Hello?
Oh God, do you know what? I loved all of it. I think. When we all worked together.
Did you laugh a lot when you was making it?
Yes. Yeah. But when we were filming it, it was really difficult because you've got some really, there's some laughs in there. And when you're rehearsing that there's that certain bit where someone always tends to go. Yeah. We had to be very careful when we were filming, because David Croft said, "I'm not going to go back and film it. You either get it or you don't." And but working with the cast, all brilliant in their roles, I think was a joy, and we did have a laugh. Yeah.
So you did a really good impression in the bar earlier of Joe Cotton.
Oh, yes.
God, that was really, really good. How did you find that, EastEnders?
Well, do you know, my whole life people have said to me, "Why are you not in EastEnders?" Yeah. And now I am. I think John Cannon is the casting director, and he got me in to read for this part, and I read the script, and the script's brilliant. Yeah. And she is a feisty character. Yeah. Hi, I'm looking for Rocky. And you are? I'm Jo, Josephine Cotton. Is my husband in? I mean, she's feisty, completely different from Yvette in Hello Hello. Yeah. But she's strong, she's feisty, and she's got some great lines. Darren Little is one of the writers. He's written me some brilliant lines.
Okay. So, Vicky, that's been amazing chatting to you. You are a legend. My friends will be Well Gel that spoke today. And Adam Brooks will be joining me for Last Orders.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prisons?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat. Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Weeknights on GB News from 6 p.m. You'll always get drama.
Please stop, Michelle.
I know, yeah.
Please stop.
Should I just shut up?
Romance.
You like me, I like you. There you go.
There you are. Well, don't tell anybody.
Adventure.
Etc.
That's the whole point. But
And action.
Sergeant Vicky Green, my superstar panel, they're already at it. They're fighting. It's going to be quite a show.
Only on GB News. Britain's watching.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel. On Mark Dolan Tonight, starting at the brand new Friday time of 9 p.m, Brexit 7 years on, my verdict. The so-called stupid people who voted for it were anything but. In my Take at 10, my first on-air reaction to the news that a school pupil thinks she's a cat. The case for homeschooling grows by the day. Plus, Olympic swimmer and women's rights campaigner Sharon Davies, Fleet Street legend Mike Porky Parry, and the granddaughter of a Titanic survivor on this week's tragedy. We're live from 9.
Welcome back, and it's time for Last Orders with pub legend Adam Brooks, internet sensation.
This PC Britain is why we see things like the Rotherham rape gangs get away with it for so long. People are scared to be labelled. Now, it's pretty evident from my Twitter that I'm not scared to say what I think. I don't care what other people think of me. It's typical bully behaviour. You know, go and be aggressive, go and do something, and then when it doesn't work out, play the victim. Again, we could say that about many on the left as well.
Twitter sensation, how many followers have you got?
290,000.
Is that all? And you're going to be tweeting this later on tonight, are you?
I can make a lot of noise if you upset me, you know?
Good businessman, solid businessman is Adam. He, through COVID, had difficult times with his pub. He's got a couple of pubs, is that right?
Pubs, yeah.
Just tell me a little bit about the journey from COVID to the present day. What sort of support did you get during lockdown?
Look, obviously, my personal belief is that we shouldn't have closed down.
Yeah.
You know,
we did.
We did, and I was a big, anti-lockdown campaigner. But we did lock down, and the government did
provide support, which I probably would have lost one, maybe two of my pubs if they hadn't supported me. And the bounce back scheme loan obviously helped. But you know, it's a time that I want to put behind us because it's going to take many, many years to get back to sort of pre-COVID levels.
On the flip side, Adam, I talked to a lot of smaller pubs that actually made more money during lockdown because the income they got, the support grants each month, that was actually more than the take-ins they got, and subsequently some of those actually closed after lockdown.
That certainly weren't the case.
No,
with me. I lost a six-figure sum during COVID. So obviously there are varying levels of how people.
I mean, the hospitality industry in this country is huge. It employs goodness knows how many people.
6 million indirectly and directly.
Yeah.
So it's one of the biggest industries in this.
It is. I think sometimes we forget that. Now you've got a lovely pub here. Do you do food here?
We do food, yeah.
And how was the Eat Out to Help Out? Did that help?
Do you know, it helps a little bit here, but drink is the main seller here. So this is like a little backstreet sort of boozer type pub. Okay. But I've got another pub that is mainly food, and Eat Out to Help Out really did help out there.
So moving forward as a landlord, what sort of challenges do you see?
I mean, there's a lot of challenges. I don't think this game is ever going to go back to what it was. You know, there's many different challenges, but energy costs is probably one of my biggest problems here. As you see, it's a small pub, but I pay £1,000 a week electric alone. So the challenges in trying to cut back and trying to cover those, I mean, food inflation, drink inflation, all my suppliers are putting their prices up. In January, one put it up 15%. I couldn't pass it on to the customers. So, you know, small businesses, especially public-facing small businesses, are taking massive margin cuts and profit cuts, you know, to keep open. But, you know, if it gets worse, it's going to be a big problem in this country.
So what would you say to somebody thinking about going into the pub trade at the moment?
Well, the pub trade is a great trade. It's you know, as I say, it employs so many people in this country, and it's an industry that I've been in my whole life. My mum and dad had pubs. You know, I desperately wanted my own pub. So, look, it is still a great industry.
So let's have a go at playing pub, shall we? We've got a brilliant guest here today, Vicky Michelle. She's going to come in and pull a pint. We're going to use the frothometer, which is somewhere knocking about. I do believe this is the first pint you've ever pulled, Vicky.
Yes.
But I did see some shenanigans going off in the back earlier.
Oh, but that was because I asked how to pull it, but I didn't pull it.
You didn't pull it?
No, but it's just...
I don't want you wasting
it's a bit like champagne. No. Sorry.
There's a glass.
Okay.
I think it's this one we're pulling, Adam, is it?
Okay.
So there's no pressure.
All right, can I start?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're not on a time limit on this one.
Oh, look.
Ooh.
Wow.
Oh no, I think this is going to be a frothy one.
It's doing all right.
And then it goes over the top.
Yeah.
And that's all right, apparently. Is that okay? Oh my goodness.
I think your profits are down, Adam.
Yeah, it's not good for my profits, but
sorry.
The end result wasn't too bad.
I think if you put it on the bar there, we'll get the
That's not too frothy.
The no expense spared frothometer.
I'm too little.
Where is the frothometer? It's somewhere over there on that table. The tape measure.
Is that a good... Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! He had one job, so let me have a look at that.
They're trying to kill me, Lee.
I would say that's half it. That's a good half inch.
Is that a good one?
Yeah, I think that's a good one.
Yeah, thank you.
And I think, Adam, we need to judge that between ourselves. What do you think we should give her?
I think a 9.
9?
Oh,
yeah, I'm going to give her a 9.
Well, as luck would have it, I've got the scoreboard here. Vicky, your name's on already.
Brilliant.
So I'm going to write a 9 on there.
Oh, that's brilliant.
So, great first point. Guys, Vicky, Adam, thanks for joining me on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
So, that's it. That's the finish of my first show on Lee Anderson's Real World. Big thanks to all my guests that joined me this week. Next week, we've got Barry Gardner and Bobby Davro.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, I'm Jonathan Vautry here with your evening GB News weather forecast provided by the Met Office. It's a warm and humid weekend to come for pretty much all of us, all due to us feeding in winds from the southwest, and that's feeding in this mild air across all areas of the UK. We do still need to watch out for these frontal features pushing their way across through Friday evening, and that could bring quite a lot of rain for parts of Scotland, heavy in places particularly over higher ground areas. Towards the south and east, staying drier through the night with some clearer spells. Might see the odd mist and fog patch, but for all of us it is going to be a mild and humid night. Towns and cities not dropping much lower than 17 degrees Celsius, so it could be quite sticky as some of us head to bed. Into Saturday morning, still some outbreaks of rain for parts of Cumbria into northwest Scotland, gradually pushing their way northwestwards, but generally they'll fade out as we head into the afternoon. The cloud will break up a bit more, allowing those sunny intervals to develop. In that sunshine across Northern Ireland, parts of central Scotland will see temperatures higher than they were on Friday, around the mid-20s, but climbing towards 30 degrees Celsius in the southeastern areas of England. Really will be quite a hot day with some strong UV levels if you are out in the sunshine. Into Saturday evening, that cloud will melt its way off, so there will be some late sunshine that will turn into clear intervals overnight, but it's going to be another humid one for all of us. Again, 17 Celsius, the lows. Then into Sunday, we are watching this feature as it pushes in from the west. Could provide quite heavy rain for Northern Ireland, parts of western Scotland, before it eventually moves its way into England, with some thunderstorms developing ahead of that. Potential for some torrential downpours and surface water issues. That cold front slinks its way across and opens up the door to some fresher air from the west, but it also allows these further low pressure centres to start moving their way in. So the weekend and into the start of the new working week looks like it will turning more unsettled, but also a little bit fresher. Bye-bye.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, from 9:30 on Sunday morning when I'll be asking former Chancellor Kwasi Kwarteng why Britain is fast becoming the West's inflation monster. Is Trussonomics really to blame? And I'll be joined in the studio by Tony Abbott, Australia's former Prime Minister, to discuss how he stopped the votes and whether conservatism is dying not just in Britain but around the world. Whatever you do, don't miss the Camilla Tominey Show this Sunday morning from 9:30.
On Mark Dolan Tonight, starting at the brand new Friday time of 9 p.m, Brexit 7 years on, my verdict. The so-called stupid people who voted for it were anything but. In my Take at 10, my first on-air reaction to the news that a school pupil thinks she's a cat. The case for homeschooling grows by the day. Plus Olympic swimmer and women's rights campaigner Sharon Davies, Fleet Street legend Mike Porky Parry, and the granddaughter of a Titanic survivor on this week's tragedy. We're live from 9.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the People's Channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute. Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christie's, at drive time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app, and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christie's, on GB News and GB News Radio.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us. From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News.
Britain's news channel. Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good evening, I'm Rory Smith in the GB Newsroom. Mortgage holders struggling with repayments will be given a 12-month grace period before repossessions begin. It's after the Chancellor met with mortgage lenders to discuss what can be done to support struggling households. Under the measures being rolled out in the coming weeks, borrowers will be able to extend the term of the mortgages or temporarily move to an interest-only plan. Labour says the new measures are a weak response, but Jeremy Hunt says the plans will help those who face losing their homes.
The most significant thing is that they can pick up the phone to their bank or their mortgage lender and talk about their situation without any worry that it will impact their credit score. And if they decide to make their payments easier by extending the period of their mortgage or by going to an interest-only package, they can go back to their original package without any questions asked, without any impact on their credit score within 6 months. That's the reassurance that people like Martin Lewis have been saying will make a big difference for families in those situations.
Braintree District Council has lost an appeal over plans to use the Wethersfield airfield in Essex to house asylum seekers. The council brought legal action against the Home Office over the proposed use of the site to accommodate up to 1,700 male asylum seekers for up to 6 months. The local authority argued proposals would breach planning control, but judges dismissed the appeal, ruling in favour of the Home Office. A 25-year-old man is being found guilty of murdering a Met police officer in South London in 2020. Luis de Souza shot Matritana in the chest at a police station after smuggling in an antique revolver and opening fire while still in handcuffs. As a result, the Independent Office for Police Conduct recommends handheld metal detectors should be rolled out by all forces. Strikes at Heathrow have been called off as workers accept a new pay deal. More than 2,000 staff members were due to strike for 31 days throughout the summer. Unite Union says workers will receive a pay increase of between 15.5% and 17.5%. And the royal family were out in force today at Ascot. The King and the Queen led the traditional royal carriage procession around the parade ring in glorious sunshine earlier today. Following them in the carriage behind was the Prince and Princess of Wales. Kate was wearing a red Alexander McQueen dress and a matching Philip Tracy hat. They were also joined by acting royalty. That was Dame Judi Dench, who was in the procession's fourth carriage. TV, online, DAB+ radio and on TuneIn. This is GB News. Now, though, it's over to Bev.
Good evening. It is just after 8 o'clock. Tonight I am Lauren Fox, identifying as Bev Turner. Coming up on this gorgeous Friday night, Pride fatigue somewhere over the rainbows that are plastered in every single shop and classroom window right now is the reason that Pride Week started. But the defeat of homophobia is a success story. So why are we still banging on about being proud of where people like to put their private parts? And if so, is it time to start celebrating being straight? Plus, the reason Prince Harry and his missus were ditched by Spotify. Harry wanted to interview Putin and Trump about their childhood traumas. It just makes me die, that story. I think it's hilarious, presumably thinking that would be the route to world peace. These stories and more with our news house this evening. Rachel Watkin, eco-entrepreneur, and Connor Tomlinson, political commentator. And you are my third panellist tonight. As always, gbviews@gbnews.com is the email. But first, yesterday we heard that interest rates have been given their 13th consecutive increase to try and dampen the UK's inflation bonfire. On the same day, Chris Whitty was talking to the world's most expensive COVID inquiry about the logic of locking down healthy people. And don't for 1 minute think that these two issues are unrelated. This is the man who stood at the lectern every day at 5 p.m. to explain why you mustn't leave your house. I'm sure you remember it clearly. And triggered a £500 billion government spending spree, which has now set our economy on course to probably collapse. Here is Whitty yesterday being quizzed on how lockdowns came about.
Very big new idea was the idea of a lockdown. All the NPIs are sometimes called lockdown by some commentators, but I'm talking here very, very specifically about the state saying people have to go home and stay at home, except under very limited circumstances. A very radical thing to do. I would have thought it would be very surprising, without this being requested by a senior politician or similar, that a scientific committee would venture in between emergencies into that kind of extraordinarily major social intervention with huge economic and social ramifications.
Right. So we were told repeatedly that the politicians were following the science, but the scientists are now saying that they were following the politicians, which begs the question, who were the politicians following? Apart from, of course, the Chinese Communist Party with their footage of people face-planting in the street to terrify the West, where, unfortunately, self-serving politicians were hoping for a popularity bounce. As Matt Hancock's WhatsApp messages revealed, in January 2020, a well-handled crisis could propel him into the next league and break him through in terms of public perception. Oh, it did that all right, Hancock. We definitely have your number now. You see, to truly understand the country we live in at the moment, the economic cluster fiasco only makes sense when viewed alongside decisions made since spring 2020. A man who is starting to be trolled by his own name, Foreign Secretary James Cleverly, was on stage this week, blaming Ukraine, Brexit, Putin, all the usual convenient get-out-of-jail-free cards for MPs too lazy to read anything longer than a tweet. It is none of those things. It is 10 years of ex-Goldman Sachs banker Mark Carney, appointed by George Osborne to lead the Bank of England via excessively low interest rates, grotesque property bubbles and overzealous money printing, which ramped up to warp speed during lockdowns so that healthy young people could hide at home instead of going to work. We now know that Boris Johnson knew the true risk.